I mean, the truth is that Donald Trump is a clinical psychopath of a malignant narcissistic variety, who with certain other unfortunate mental and personality characteristics. I mean, he is the quintessential fascist. If we understand fascism, first of all, as a certain state of mind and attitude towards power, leadership, direction, etc. All this was very nicely laid out by the Italian philosopher and novelist Umberto Eco some years ago, and the fit to Trump is in every respect, I mean, nearly perfect. So, on top of which, Trump cannot sustain his attention on any subject for more than a few minutes. This is literally the case. It's been testified by people who worked for him for years. Don't forget that his former chief of staff, General Kelly, in his first administration, and General McMaster, right, his national security advisor, both asserted publicly last year during the campaign that A, Trump is a fascist, that is their word, right? And B, that the man is incapable of of logical thinking and coherent planning.
Yeah, but
So
what?
we have to realize, therefore, that when it comes to the utterances of Donald Trump, we're talking about words strung together, or slogans strung together in almost random fashion, a process of free association, or in most cases, non-association, if you like, uh, many of which are self-contradictory as well as sort of counterproductive, and therefore sort of susceptible of being manipulated by others around him who fix on one of Trump's obsessions and then, in effect, direct it towards a particular preferred course of action, like recent steps in regard to Ukraine. And uh, Jonathan Miller, his deputy um, chief of staff, apparently is very active on this. Then out comes a tweet in the middle of the night, many of which apparently not even composed by Trump, but by Miller, and then shown to him. And he says, "Yeah, that's great. That's the way I feel." And out goes the tweet. So that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, but what does this do to the system? Because the there was this assumption that Donald Trump was an outlier of the system, right? That he was somebody who broke into the elite circles from, I mean, he was an elite himself, right? But he was not a political elite.
Mm.
And that he breaks in and basically then creates a new paradigm, this shift, this America First shift toward focusing on the homeland, and thereby basically going against the neocon vision of total foreign dominance. That was also part of his rhetoric, of course, that got him elected. He was the peace candidate, and it seems now that this was hot air. So what does it do to the system that the the way he is and the way the administration now runs?
Well, first of all, let's say to link together the words Donald Trump and paradigm um, is to fantasize. He has no paradigm. He has no organized conception or understanding of the world, of the United States, or any part of it. In this sense, he has no mind as we generally understand it in regard to persons who hold positions of responsibility, much less a president of, of the United States. And with the two forms, I think, I'll get back to the question you raised about new outlook, whether we use the term paradigm or not. There have always been two projections. One is the projection onto him by those who voted for him, But let's remember, in American politics, 80% at a minimum of the vote is predetermined. 40% of the populace will automatically vote Republican, 40% vote Democratic. In recent, over the last some decades, it's been 45%. It's not that the others or the floating people are thoughtful independents. Quite the opposite. In fact, most so-called independents are people even less informed than the other 80 or 90%. But what you have to be, the United States is riddled with all kinds of grievances, obsessions that people have. Uh, Despite the fact that, it's not a country that in any way is in danger. It's not a country that has suffered any trauma. It's not a country where you've had, sharp ethnic, religious conflicts and divisions. It is historically unprecedented that a country like that, and let's add to that, its 200 and what, 40-year, 30-year tradition of constitutional democracy should, in effect, opt for fascism, which is what's happening. So, the point is that what a lot of people did, they have a grievance about immigration, which is, by the way, greatly exaggerated in terms of its saliency for most people in the United States. If I have a grievance about all of the silliness of going on in and around not just campuses of universities, but elsewhere with transgender bathrooms and blah, 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 et cetera. So the United States is replete with all these obsessions. And in what a society that to a large extent now is nihilistic, people indulge themselves by attaching meaning, personal meaning, and importance to a lot of these things. So many of you, what they did, Trump came along, gave expression to some of these grievances, and they say, great guy, he's our man. Not at all thinking about who this man really is, not thinking very much about the crazy things he says, not thinking about his 23 witnessed and testified assaults on women in public places, and many, many other things, and just to the side because they were fixated on this one or two sort of particular issues. When it comes to the American political establishment, they did oppose the Republican establishment, such as it is, or let's say the world of the country clubs and business community. They didn't want Trump. They did oppose him. But when it became clear in 2016 that they was going to be nominated and had a chance to win, they jumped on the bandwagon. And there has been no serious opposition of any kind from the sort of traditional Republican elites to Trump ever since. Now that is classic. That's not uniquely American.
Mhm.
We look at the history of the 20th century, people who got to autocratic regimes, and in particular fascist regimes in Central and Eastern Europe, Italy, Spain, etc. And the old conservative establishment is always ready in the end to make peace with and to reconcile itself with the leader of the mob, whether it be Mussolini, whether it be Hitler, whether it be Franco, or any other places in East Europe. And let's not forget that Lloyd Blankstone, the former head of Goldman Sachs, extraordinary influential sort of person, stated on more than one occasion that if it came down to a contest between Donald Trump, right, and Bernie Sanders, who was then seeking the nomination, whether it was in 16 or 20, he would definitely vote for Trump. Bernie Sanders, as he saw it, was a greater threat to the country. No, these guys really don't think in terms of the country. To him, to Goldman Sachs, to predatory finance.
Yeah, I mean,
Bernie Sanders was nothing but a New Deal Democrat. all right, was seen by Blankfein and his fellows as a greater threat.
Yeah, I mean, internally, the United States at this point has transformed into an oligarchy, right? Where really the power elite and the money elite has the has the ultimate say, right? And really the elections that people are allowed to participate in is then an election which gives you literally the choice between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And I mean, I would never have wanted to be American in that moment. It's like it's basically the system telling you which poison do you want. But when if we abstract from that and we go back to the to the United States as a political entity that in which Mr. Trump is really just one out of many within the system and one of many in a succession of office holders, right? And what is getting clear now is that he will not change the course. He will just take off the, let's say, this veil of pretense in international relations and rename the Department of Defense into Department of War, right? And in a sense, give us that clarity of what my institution is about. So, and how are you seeing this one now continuing?
Well, let's separate two things. First, with regard to foreign policy, yes, there is more continuity than change, except that the quotient of sheer incompetence and stupidity has increased. Given the kinds of people who the president is and the people around him, is fully understandable. The revolutionary change is taking place in the United States. In the United States, in some respects, by objective measures, is no longer a constitutional democracy. The violations of law, of precedent, the abuse of power are so blatant, so widespread, strike into one of the most fundamental principles of American public life, that this does indeed constitute a revolution.